It is no secret that financial freedom is one of the most common goals held among people. With this being such a common goal, there has to be something that differentiates the people that have the goal and actually obtain it, and those who have the goal and never quite reach it. Inherently, knowing what those differentiators are make it more likely for you to become one of those people that successfully obtain financial freedom. In light of that, I'm Seth. This is Acquired Salary, and this is going to be the ultimate guide to understand those fundamentals so that you have all the knowledge you need to become financially independent. Part 1. The basics and philosophy of becoming financially independent. Before we can dive too far into the subsequent basics, it is best that we are all on the same page, and we can do this by defining what financial independence is. Financial independence is a state where an individual has accumulated sufficient financial resources to cover living expenses without having to depend on active employment to maintain one's current lifestyle. Some definitions include work in general as a part of the definition, but this is unattainable for the vast majority of people, so I prefer to exclude it from the definition. That is because owning a business is a financial resource, but ownership, even as an absentee owner, will require some work to maintain it, and the same goes for selecting investments and paying attention to the market to maintain your investments. For additional context on why removing work from the equation makes financial independence unattainable, check out my video on the cost of the American dream, where I incorporate financial independence in the calculation. With the basic financial independence definition, we can start to explore and understand the first rule or foundational philosophy that facilitates becoming financially independent. It also will allude to our second rule, but the first rule is no half measures. This is best exemplified by a comparison of two individuals. John is making $200,000 a year, and he claims that he wants to become financially independent. And Steve is making $80,000 a year, but is actually acting towards becoming financially independent. The primary difference in their actions is going to be how they are saving and investing. Steve, taking no half measures when it comes to becoming financially independent, has automated his savings and investing to where over 50% of his income is invested. John, on the other hand, who is taking the half measures, isn't putting any thought into it and allocating less than 10% of his income to savings and investing, and this is only occurring when he remembers to make the required money transfers. This breaks down to where, although John makes more than twice as much as Steve is saving twice as much as John. When compounded over time, Steve will become financially independent. John may eventually become financially independent as well, but it will be far after Steve reaches the financial independence, and this is all because of his commitment to the goal. No half measures is an extension of discipline. Discipline can be difficult to develop, but one of my favorite ways to build discipline is through adding friction to the decisions that move me away from my goal and reduce friction to the decisions and actions that move me toward it. This is essentially constructing your financial independence system. So an example system, for instance, is setting up your direct deposit to deposit half of your paycheck directly into an investment account, which automatically invests into the S&P 500. It is absolutely true that this system does not entirely prevent you from being able to access and spend the money, but it requires a lot more action or there's a lot more friction in the system. First, you would have to sell your shares of the S&P 500. Then you'd have to transfer your money into a checking account, which would take a few days, and it is only then that you would finally actually be able to spend the money. So, with so much effort to spend money and move you farther away from your goal of financial independence, you are far less likely to go through those actions and spend it. Please note, this is only an example system. We have not covered all the fundamentals yet, so this may not be the best system or highest leverage approach for you to take. We'll be determining that later. If you click off the video now and implement this system, you will be doing better than those who do not have any system, but again, there may and likely is a better approach for you. Now, before I go on any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, I would be so grateful if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. I know this would make you an early adopter, but just think ahead 3 years when the channel has grown, you'll be able to say, You were one of the first supporters. In addition to that, it is support like this that helps to grow Acquired Salaries' reach, so we can continue to give you free tools, information, and perspectives you need to help build the life that you want. Part 2, action. So it's clear that the foundation of becoming financially independent requires commitment and avoiding half measures, but this alone is not the comprehensive set of rules to help you reach financial freedom. The second rule of financial independence, as alluded to in the half measures example, is saving and investing. No matter how committed you say you are, the rubber hits the road when you take action. If you're not saving and investing, you will never reach your goal. The higher percentage of income that you save, the faster you will become financially independent and replace your existing income and maintain your standard of living. For instance, if you save and invest 25% of your income, it will take you 32 years to reach financial independence, as if you save 70% of your income, it will only take you 8.8 years. With that said, these assumptions are based off of all of your savings going into one investment vehicle, but this is inherently not the most optimal approach. Which raises the question of how does one determine the optimal approach and the best place to save and invest? Well, the answer to this question comes in the form of the third rule for financial independence: highest leverage, low risk first. This is the guiding principle that will maximize how far your dollars go and therefore make it so you have the shortest path to financial independence. The Money Guy Show has an extremely beneficial order of operations, which focuses on high leverage activities first when it comes to your finances. With that said, I think the order of operations they have is missing a key component or a piece of nuance. I'm in no way trying to critique or criticize their work because it's incredible, and if you just straight up follow it, you are going to do very well. But the nuance comes in refining the return on investment and risk calculus, as the order of operations they have does not allocate anything to learning. The status quo for many companies in management is that there is a season of learning and a season of earning. When it comes down to it, especially if you are young, one of the highest leverage opportunities for saving and investing is saving and investing in tangible skills. Take, for instance, a high school graduate. They likely only qualify for minimum wage jobs, but if they invest in a phlebotomy certification, they then permanently increase their earning capacity by as much as 25% or more. For instance, the minimum wage in Colorado is $15 an hour, but phlebotomists make 20 plus. Annualizing that wage results in making an additional $10,000 a year just from the phlebotomy certificate. A phlebotomy certificate can cost $1,000, and doing a 1-year return on investment, this is a 900% return on investment. In addition to tangible return on investment, this skill can never be taken away from you. Yes, if it isn't used, it may become rusty, but the person's baseline earning capacity is permanently increased. Further, most skills stack upon each other and feed into developing additional skills that are of even higher demand or higher value, so it becomes easy to argue that the return on investment for skills is infinite. The more one invests in learning, the shorter the season of learning becomes, and this inherently increases the duration of your season of earning. Based on the above example of skill acquisition, if one were to simply determine leverage based upon return on investment, a decision or action has development or skill development specifically would trump all other steps in the order of operations. But as things go with any policy, there are trade-offs, and it's important to consider and be mindful of these trade-offs. As we take risk into consideration, I think the first 4 financial order of operations are non-negotiable. You have no way of knowing what tragedies life has in store for you, and having all of your insurance deductibles covered is essential because this prevents any black swan event from wiping you out financially. Again, this goes back to it does not matter how much money you make, it's about how much you keep or save. If you're making and saving a small fortune, but you don't have all of your deductibles covered, and something unforeseen happens, this unforeseen event can wipe out your principal investment, which is the true engine to gaining financial independence because of compounding interest. The second order of operations, maximizing the employer match, may not be applicable to everyone listening, but if you do have this employee benefit, it's quite literally free money. Free money has no risk, and it has a infinite return on investment, so it certainly trumps a 900% return on investment through the skill acquisition example. The third and fourth order of operations, paying off high interest rate debt and saving emergency reserves would be something like paying off credit card debt or consumer debt and saving up 3 to 6 months of expenses. And this is where the risk calculus starts to get difficult. It becomes so difficult because one has to accurately assess their job security and risk of losing out on a steady income. Some specific situations, like where one has virtually zero risk of losing their job, may make it to where investing in skills would be a higher leverage opportunity than paying off debt and building an emergency reserve, but this is situational as job security is never a guarantee. The reason it's so important to consider the risks at this point is because it is just like the deductibles. Investment in skills has a delay in the return on investment, and the compounding effect of high interest rate debt accumulates fast. So a few months where you're not free from this high interest rate debt is an acceleration in the opposite direction of financial independence. Further, if you do not have an emergency reserve and you miscalculated your job security, you can find yourself unemployed and you run the risk of having to take on consumer debt or credit card debt to live. So, as a general recommendation, considering the economic outlook of 2024, the job market for professional and white-collar jobs is tough, meaning even if you get new certificates or degrees, the guarantee of a job is lower, or in other words, the ability for one to increase baseline earning capacity to one of a high-paying white-collar job is difficult, so it's a high-risk investment at this time to put above paying off debt and building an emergency reserve. Further detail on the difficulties of the job market are in another video of mine you can watch after this one to see some of my recommendations to help maximize your chances of finding a higher paying job. But at this point, I think the discussion has sufficiently exemplified how to consider risk and its importance when it comes to determining leverage and where to deploy your savings and investments. Although you may be familiar with some of the concepts in this video, a reminder of the rules to becoming financially independent are always a great way to reinvigorate one's commitment to achieving this goal. What do you think? Please share your thoughts and comments in the comment section below, and stay tuned for any future videos to help build the life that you want. Until next time, thank you.